Welcome back to Rooted in Impact. Today I'm joined by Alice Knapp, CEO of the Ferguson Library and this year's recipient of United Way's 2026 Community Catalyst Award. This award recognizes leaders who don't just serve their communities, but actively strengthen and connect them, and Alice's work is a powerful example of that. Under her leadership, the Ferguson Library has been reimagined as more than a place for books. It's a trusted community hub that connects residents to technology, resources, education, and opportunity. Today, we'll talk a little bit about how libraries are evolving to meet community needs, expand access, and foster belonging, and how Alice's leadership continues to drive that impact across Stamford. Alice, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on this well-deserved recognition.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We're glad to have you, and we're going to jump right in, starting a little bit with just the concept of libraries and how they've changed over the years. So, can you start with describing the role of a modern library?
You know, in some ways, it's very similar to the role of a traditional library or, a 1980s, early 1990s library, but then it's expanded so much. So, if we look at what our mission is, it's to provide access to information, to provide access to the arts, to provide access to humanities. And in many ways, that hasn't changed. The mode of how we answer the questions might have changed
Right.
dramatically. But in doing so, that's also given us great opportunities. So if I were to look back at a library from the 1990s or even the early 2000s, what you would see is a book warehouse. You would see rows and rows of books, mainly here just in case, or as opposed to just in time. And they, the reference collections were huge. And we still have, especially at the main library, a fairly substantial reference collection, but the bulk of that reference material is now online. And
Right, it's digital.
it's all digital. It's in our databases. So if you want to look up, when your family moved to Stamford back in 1946 and see and try to find them in the Stamford Advocate, you can do so because that's all been digitized.
Okay.
And same thing with a lot of the references, like I'm dating myself when I say like the periodicals, where you would look up articles and stuff like that. Well, now you can go into our databases and you can look them up and you can still really get a nice bibliography of material for your research. And then we have the business references and stuff like that. So those are still there, and our librarians are still answering those questions. But a lot of it people can do from their home. So they may be an avid library user who never walks through the library doors.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so in that way, we've expanded our footprint and our access. And even now, our popular material, so much of it, about a third of the materials that we circulate are virtual. So the popular ebook, e-audio, streaming movies, those are all, if you live in Glenbrook and it's not easy to get to one of our library branches or Chopin or up in the ridges, you can still use the library and just download the material.
Yeah, which I'm sure, right, makes a huge difference to your point in access and opportunity.
Opportunity. But by the same token, so what I tell people is like last year, 491,000 people walked through our doors of all of our branches.
In Stamford, Connecticut, 481,000.
Yes. 200,000 more visited us virtually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And some of those are obviously the same people, but that's
right.
So in addition to our walk-in business, they have it. So we've always had, which I've called the newspaper clutch people who come in at, whether the library opens 9 or 10, if it opened at 8, they'd all be grouped there and come in and get the newspaper. We still have those folks who do that. We still have the families who stroll in with their kids during the day, and this is the field trip for the day. They're coming to the library, whether there's a story time or not.
We all were there at one point or another, not too long ago.
Yeah, exactly. We still have those folks. But in addition, and this is true in all of our branches, we have folks who will come down, and because we have great Wi-Fi, fast, stable Wi-Fi, they'll bring their own equipment and walk through the doors, and they'll go out for lunch at noon and then come back in the afternoon. And in many ways, we are like their office.
It's their co-working space.
We're a co-working space. Yeah. And we like to say we're a co-working space before you can afford a co-working space.
For the startup.
For the start, yes. And so what has changed is libraries used to always be quiet, although I think since I've been in the business, they've never truly been quiet. But now what we find is that we need sound separation, because the person who's coming in and working during the day may need to take a Zoom call. And so where are they going to go within the building to take that Zoom call so they're not bothering other people?
Right. We can all remember being in a library, having a librarian tell us to be quiet, right?
Quiet.
That's very
Yes.
much an image. But now we have pods and rooms, and right, you've had to evolve to be able to offer space for multiple needs.
Multiple needs. And where does that small co-op condo group go to meet? The board, where do they go to meet? Where do small neighborhood associations go to meet? And so, I was just putting together these statistics for somebody else. Between Harry Bennett and the main library, our small meeting rooms have been used close to 1,000 times, and we still have a couple months left in our fiscal year. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty amazing the amount of people who just come in. They may only need us for an hour, but then they go out again.
But the library serves that purpose. And so what else do you see, right? That's the library serving as space. That's the library serving as an access point to books and technology and Wi-Fi. What other services are you both seeing from a need perspective of people who walk through your doors, and how are you meeting those needs?
Yeah, so coming out of COVID, and this has been borne by some of the national studies, we were doing a strategic plan, and what we heard from people is they felt alone and isolated, and they wanted to connect to community. So one of the big things that we see our role is a way for people to connect in community. So a good example is Wednesday night, we with Connecticut Public Broadcasting, we had an author come in and talk about his latest book on Sam Shepard. And there are people who are hungry to hear about culture and the humanities and what made this person such a great actor and playwright. And of course, we wanted to hear the gossip because he dated Patti Smith and Jessica Lange.
You could get a little bit of fun out of that too.
You get a little bit of fun out of it. But there was a reception beforehand where people gathered to talk. Afterwards, there was a signing where people gathered to talk. And there was a real hunger for people to connect.
Yeah, to be together, right? I don't think that has gone away, right? We for sure experienced that. And to your point, there are studies and so much research about what COVID did to that social isolation concept. And I still think people are craving that community and that togetherness.
They really are. And it's the parent who comes in for story time. There was a cute story where up at the Harry Bennett branch, we had our weekly story time. And afterwards, there was a 1-year-old birthday party right in the middle of the story time pit. And we didn't know anything about it. The parents just got together and planned
a party at the library.
Have a party at the library. And they were all there and that's where they're meeting and connecting together. We've been working very closely with the city of Stamford, the Interfaith Council, and VITA on Common Ground, which is really how do we have conversations where we can find the common ground in this age of divisiveness? How do we relearn how to talk to one another, to do storytelling together? And, when we started talking about this, I really thought, we're not going to get that many people. This is but it'll be fine because the people who come are craving this.
Right. And we'll
Well,
want it and need it.
yeah. What we found is that the first one we had over 40 people come. The second one we had over 70 people come.
Wow.
And there's a real yearning to talk about the values that matter to us and what we somehow see. We're seeing attacks on those values and feeling hopeless about it. So how can we come together to form that common ground and become that community again? And it's in June, I think it's June 10th, we're having a unity breakfast with
Yes.
here at the library. It's the city of Stamford with the AGC that are sponsoring it, but it's part of that is around that. How do we form that core again? And then that I think is, if someone told me, back at the beginning of my career, I'd be worried about these things. I don't know that I would say, this is an important driver, and now I see it as a very important driver. Using our collections and that, that our thirst for knowledge, how does that bring us all together?
Yeah, and the library is a powerful place and convener for that to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Alice, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation here in Rooted in Impact.
Across coastal and western Connecticut, families are working hard every day to build stable, healthy lives, but for many, the path to financial security isn't always clear. That's where United Way Coastal and Western Connecticut comes in. In partnership with the community, United Way is addressing critical needs and creating equitable pathways to well-being, from access to childcare and food to financial education and workforce support. Because when individuals have the tools to succeed, entire communities grow stronger. Serving 27 communities across Fairfield and southern Litchfield counties, United Way is working toward a future where every person is healthy, safe, and economically secure. This is more than a vision. It's a shared commitment. To learn more or get involved, visit unitedwaycwc.org.
Welcome back, Alice. We are going to kind of take where we just landed, talking about values and the role that the library can play in helping to foster dialogue and really dive into community connection, and turn to how you work to ensure that the library is able to remain responsive as both community needs evolve and also kind of the broader landscape, whether it's the state landscape or the national landscape. How does the library play a role in remaining responsive to those things?
What a great question. I would say it's changed over the years. The libraries, the traditional 20th century library, I would say, was very, very prescriptive. We know the books that are best for you to purchase. We know the services that are best to provide. And I think the biggest difference in the 21st century library is we spend a lot of time listening to the community. So every 3 years, we go out and we've just completed this process. I haven't seen the results yet, but we have.
We'll bring you back when you have the results.
Yeah. We have community conversations. And it's a series of 5 to 6 conversations where we really ask pretty abstract questions, like, what do you want for your community? This year the question was, if Stamford was a color, what would it be, and what would you want it to be? Right.
Oh, interesting.
And then you get people talking about what they want from their community. And then we boil it down from there, and maybe eventually we'll get to 1 or 2 questions about the library, but we're really asking about the community, driving down into that public knowledge. And that will inform. Every now and then we'll tweak a word or 2 in our mission statement, but it'll definitely form our vision statement. And then our goals for the next 3 to 5 years, and the strategies that we're going to approach. So it's very much rooted in what the community is telling us. And then the last one that we did was coming out of COVID. And that's when we heard about isolation and how community was important. And that really has been our driver. It's changed some of our policies. It's changed when we talk about our 10-year comprehensive plan for our facilities. It was those conversations that led to our strategic framework that drove what we're doing in our buildings now.
Right. In your facility planning to make space, to change space, right. To be that hub. Yes. I love that question, right? What do you want from your community? What do you want for your community? And thinking about that for all of us as nonprofits, right? Making sure we're asking that question and then taking that information and using it to drive strategic planning, program implementation, right? All of those pieces. So I applaud you for approaching it that way.
Yeah, and this is really based out of the Harwood Institute. I know United Way has a relationship with the Harwood Institute.
Yeah, we do.
So, 2013, I went to an innovators lab, and since that time, we've been sending 2 people a year to it. So hopefully our staff is steeped in that thought process as well. And then they also have the ability to do some facilitation themselves. So we don't have to always rely on outside consultants to do this. We can do it.
We have staff who are trained. Yeah, that's fantastic. Alice, as we wrap up, you've been at the Ferguson Library for a little bit of time. What are you most proud of, right? If you are looking back at your career, what are you most proud of?
I think one of the things I'm most proud of is the library team that's here now and their work they're doing on a daily basis. But I say that is before the last 10 years, before it was cool, and then it became cool, and now it's not cool anymore. We've really been focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion and belonging, I would say. And how do we make sure the staff here represents the community? How do we make sure that, my implicit bias doesn't impact the policies? Staff's implicit biases don't impact policies. How do we make ourselves so that we're more open to the community? And we've had some really tough internal conversations around this. We've changed our hiring practices. We've changed our policies. I mean, I think Connecticut is almost 100% fine free. There's still a couple libraries that still have fines for late books.
There's about 20. Because I serve in a legislative capacity in my town, and we were one of the 20-ish towns who still had fines, and I am proud to say we are now going to be a fine-free community.
Oh, that is fantastic. And this has been a goal, at the Connecticut Library Association level. But we signed a pledge with the Urban Library Council and said, we're going to be fine-free. And that's really game changing. But having automatic renewals means that the number of overdue books actually go down tremendously.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you're open to the community. The other thing we've done is understanding that we're not in all the neighborhoods we should be. And so what can we do in the short term?
Right.
We have our linked library program, which student ID is a library card number, and children can place a hold on a book and we'll deliver it to the schools.
Okay. Right, because again, access.
It's access. And that was one of the real reasons to get rid of the fines is the children were the ones who had the most fines. Why? Because they have to rely on their parents to get here.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So we were punishing the wrong people. And we really do care about early childhood literacy. We want those third grade test scores to go up. So why are we putting these roadblocks here?
Right. You want kids to have books in front of them and books that intrigue them, right? And meet them where they're at. And the only way to do that is to make them accessible, right? And to remove any barriers that exist. So it is very clear, Alice, why, to me, and I hope to people who are listening to this, why you were chosen to be the Community Catalyst Award for our gala this year. Can you just share briefly before we wrap how you think about leadership when it comes to building stronger, more connected communities?
I think often my job as a leader is to listen. If I'm in a meeting, often I'm not the biggest voice in the room. My staff may say differently, but when I'm out in the community and I'm in a meeting, I'm listening. And then where can you make the connections, right? It became clear. I think this was youth mental health that Stanford is nonprofit rich. We have a really great community of nonprofits, but we also don't always know what all they all do. And when you're
Right.
and when you're in the moment, you're trying to help people. And one of the products that came out of it was such a library product. It's called Stanford Connect. And it's a resource that you can look up and say, I'm we started off, I think, talking about food insecurity. You can look and see where can you get food and filter it down to just that. Or if mental health is what you need, you can filter it down just to that. So it's really meant for all of us not-for-profits to know what each other does, but it also works for those people who are in need as well. It became a real resource rich for everybody.
That's incredible. And all of it builds so well. For sure, the theme I'm hearing is listening, learning from community, being willing to innovate, but never lose sight of the mission of the library and the deep desire to promote access, in all forms. So it is a real privilege to sit here and hear from you. I think we can all remember that first trip, right? Or fond memories of being in a library. And so just thank you for giving your time to me today. Thank you for everything you do for the community. And I hope people will join us at our gala to honor you on June 10th.
Oh, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in person on June 10th.
To learn more about United Way of Coastal and Western Connecticut and how we support community partners, please visit us at unitedwaycwc.org or follow us on social media. I'm Ashley Gaudiano, and this is Rooted in Impact. Thank you for listening.